Thank you all so much for being here this evening. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Jessica Salow. I am the Assistant Archivist of Black Collections at Arizona State University Library. And this event is the second half of the celebration that we are doing to honor Dr. Eugene Grigsby Jr. and the exhibit that we have currently going on at Arizona State University Library, Hayden Library, Tempe campus. For folks who are familiar with the campus, we currently have an exhibit at Hayden Library, Tempe campus, that is honoring the legacy of Dr. J. Eugene Grigsby Jr. And we have some very exciting guests here today in order for us to get to know Dr. Grigsby a little bit better and to get to hear from some of the artists who had such a profound understanding of Dr. Grigsby, his influence on them, and the ability for us to talk about such a great man and the work that he did, not only within ASU, but within the Phoenix art scene here during his time when he was around. So I'm going to go ahead and just have a little bit of a small introduction, and then we'll go ahead and hear from the artists and hear from everyone else who would like to speak about Dr. Grigsby. So as I said, my name, Jessica Salow, Assistant Archivist, Black Collections at Arizona State University. I would like to start off our events with a land acknowledgement, and I'd like to do that right now. So the ASU Library acknowledges the 23 Native nations that have inhabited this land for centuries. Arizona State University's 4 campuses are located on the Salt River Valley, which are the ancestral territories of the indigenous people, the Acquaotum, the Peeposh Indian communities who care in keeping of this land allows us to be here today. ASU Library acknowledges the sovereignty of these nations and seeks to foster an environment of success and possibility for Native American students and patrons. We are also advocates for the incorporation of Indigenous knowledge systems and research methodologies within the contemporary library systems here at ASU, and we welcome members of the Acquaotum and Peeposh lands to the library. And I'd also like to acknowledge, as Black and African American people who have been a part of the continued struggle within certain respects. And so I would just like to go ahead and acknowledge that as well at this time. So I just want to talk a little bit very quickly about Black Collections here at Arizona State University. It was established in 2021 with the support of the ASU LIFT initiative, which is the Listen, Invest, Facilitate, Teach initiative here at Arizona State University that Dr. Michael Crow put out in 2020 after the unfortunate events of 2020, including the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. ASU put out a call in order to have initiatives that were already going on within the university to try and uplift and support Black and African American faculty, students, and staff here at ASU. And Black Collections was fortunately one of the initiatives under the CDA, Community Driven Archives. We call it CDA. Sorry, I use a bunch of acronyms because I'm so used to like the lingo here. So Community Driven Archives was one of the initiatives that was supported under the LIFT initiative. And this is how Black Collections was created and started, was with the support and the determination of my boss, Nancy Godoy, who was on this call. Nancy, thank you very much for everything that you've done and your support to get this initiative and get Black Collections into the state that it is today. So I just wanted to let you all know that there are just a couple of quotes, or just one quote, I should say, on this slide that talks about in the very beginning of why this collection and why Black Collections in general is very necessary and important for the understanding of the Black and African American experience, not just at ASU, but within Arizona in general. And so if you're interested in learning more about Black Collections, I do have a talk that I did in January of 2021. It's called A Look Inside Black Collections, that is available on the ASU Library YouTube page that I would encourage you to go ahead and look at and to get to hear from me about the importance of this collection, why this collection matters, and the efforts that I am doing in order to make sure that the Black and African American experience is uplifted, highlighted, and supported through this collection and through the efforts that ASU Library in general is doing in order to make sure that we understand the Black and African American experience within Arizona State University and within Arizona specifically. Oops, sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. My apologies. So we are here to have a really interesting and great program in order to let you all know about the legacy of a spectacular man and his family. So first up, I would love to invite Dr. Marshall Grigsby to the floor to talk about his father, his influence, and his legacy, not only here at Arizona State University and Arizona specifically, but around the country and around the world. So Dr. Marshall Grigsby, if you could please unmute, I'm gonna put you on a pin here so that folks get to see your face and get to hear from you about your father and his amazing, amazing legacy. So thank you so much for being here, Marshall. Really appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for inviting me to participate in this program. And more importantly, thank you and your colleagues for doing what you're doing. I commend Arizona State for its efforts in the whole arena of inclusiveness and recognizing the works of a great many people who had a lot to do with the institution. I might say parenthetically that I grew up in Phoenix. ASU is a far different institution now than it was when I was growing up there. Some good, some not so good, but that's in the rearview mirror. You're working in that arena now, and I commend you. My father was a wonderful person. I don't know anyone who ever met him who had a harsh word to say about him. He was absolutely a people person, but in many respects, he reminds me of a Renaissance man in that he was multi-talented. He was an artist, yes, we know that, but he also, throughout the course of his life, he was a band leader, he was a poet, he was a playwright, he was a painter, a sculptor, he was a storyteller, much like the griots of old. He was a mentor to many. He obviously was an educator. He also was an inventor. During the Second World War, he invented a system. He was a part of General Patton's army. He invented a system to rapidly deploy material and supplies to the front line that was more effective and efficient than what they had in place then. And who would have expected that coming from him? So he did an awful lot of things, but first and foremost, he was a consummate teacher. He loved teaching, and he studied the art and craft of teaching, and he did it in a way that was as inclusive as possible. He had an amazingly creative mind. He was always coming up with ideas that would not only assist him in his teaching capacity, but also that would excite people and want them to do more. And you'll hear from some of the people that he had influenced over the years in his teaching a little bit later on in the program. But he had a tremendous ability to motivate young people in particular to be imaginative and to be creative. One of the things that he really helped to pioneer in the Phoenix area was moving art out of the classroom and into the communities, the teaching of art. And so he helped to establish art programs in housing projects in and around the Phoenix area. He worked with a number of community organizations. He worked with just about every one of them that is in the valley, certainly those that are dealing with uplift and education. So he's had that tremendous impact and has been recognized by many for doing that. I suspect one of the early areas where he got into the movement of art and the teaching of art into the community grew out of his experience as one of two artists involved in the American Pavilion at the 1958 World's Fair in Brussels, Belgium, where he was invited to spend several weeks there working with young people from all over the world who would come into that space and have a hands-on experience with the teaching of art. And through that, not necessarily with a view toward making them artists, but making them more aware of everything around them, to be more observant, to be more understanding of what was happening. And so that experience, I think, helped to give him an even broader view of what teaching of art really meant and how you can expand it and use it as a vehicle to get people more interested. He taught. He first went to Arizona to open the art department at Carver High School, which was a segregated high school in Phoenix, serving much of the middle part of Arizona. Students were bused in from 50, 60 miles away on a daily basis to come to Carver. And he set up the first art department there. That's where he first met Roosevelt Woods, one of his students who helped to entice him to come to Arizona State years later when Rip was on the faculty at Arizona State. You'll hear from Rip's daughter a little later about her father and my father's influence on him, and as well as his accomplishments in his own right. Uh, but he was involved in just about everything. We had an old uh, uh, Plymouth station wagon, and we called it Old Blue, and he would pile students into that and drive them around Arizona, take them to Indian reservations, take them to communities that many of them had not been a part of, to observe, to learn, and to see how art was being done in those communities, how woodworking was being done, how crafts were being done, and use that as teaching experiences. So he was that kind of person, and he had the same effect on us and on our family, and helped us to learn more about art, but also to gain a deeper appreciation and understanding of what it meant, and not just in the African American community, but in communities around the world. And he first did his doctoral dissertation on a comparison between the mask of the Kwakiutl Indian in northwest Arizona, northwest United States, and the mask of the people of the Belgian Congo at the time, now Zaire, but it was called the Belgian Congo. And uh, he compared the mask making between those two cultures. And so he was an internationalist before that became a popular thing. So he had a great and wonderful life, lived for 94 years, and was active literally up until the day he died. Uh, just one little anecdote. Uh, you would not expect an 80 plus, early 90-year-old artist to be one of the most advanced techies around, but he had a facility for working with whatever the latest invention was that came out that he could use to facilitate his interest in his work. And he learned and mastered that much more quickly than I did or my children did. So he was bright, he was sharp, and he was a fun person to be around. So I look forward to talking more with you and those who are on the line about his works and what he's accomplished as we get further on. But I'll turn it back over to you, Jessica, and for you to carry on to the next level.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marshall Grigsby. I really appreciate your time and the willingness for you to talk about your father and his amazing, amazing influence and legacy throughout Phoenix. I unfortunately was never able to meet him in person, but I feel like I'm very connected to him in some respects, not just through you, but through all of the folks on this call and the people who really took the time to talk to me about his influence and about just how much of a wonderful man and person he was. So thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate you. So we're going to move on to our next speaker, who is Miss Clottee Hammons. So thankful to have Miss Hammons on this call today and to get to have her speak about Dr. Grigsby and his influence and get to hear about the work that she is doing specifically here in Arizona to uplift and highlight Black and African American artists here in specifically the Phoenix metropolitan area. Ms. Hammons, thank you so much. Please go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
Thank you very much. And it's really wonderful to hear Marshall's voice because there's so much of his father in it. And his dad and I had so many conversations. And as I was listening to him just now, so much of that comes back to me. And I knew him when I was a student at ASU, and I moved away from Arizona for quite a long time. And when I came back, I worked for him at COBA, the Consortium of Black Artists and Others, as he often would say. And so we had the opportunity to plan many events, to have many conversations, to look at artist work that would not very often be seen, because even today it is very difficult for Black artists to gain inclusion in a lot of exhibitions. And so I really, a part of what Marshall was saying, how he extended himself to other communities and other cultures, is very much the Dr. Grigsby that I knew. And he often would say, if you reach out, then you will be accepted in to these exhibitions and to these events. And he and I would go around and around because not a lot of it was reciprocated. We would welcome students from all over the state, literally, and not much was reciprocated for Black artists. I got to know many of, and I call him Doc, I got to know many of Doc's students, not through Arizona State University, but through the exhibitions. We would put out a call for artists, and literally huge numbers of people would show up with fabulous art that they were not getting to show. And even now, there is not a gallery or museum that consistently shows the work of local Black artists. And so he really did help me sort of see the fact that if I wanted to continue to curate and not just produce art myself, but share some of the work of friends and people that I knew, I had to kick some doors open. He was certainly much more polite and had a better rapport with a lot of places, but he really did emphasize that I had to just keep on knocking. And I knew Dr. Grigsby and Rip Woods very well, so it was wonderful to sit in that crosstalk. And when they were opening the Carver Museum, Dr. Grigsby had me by my left hand and Rip Woods had my right hand. And they said, you need to come here and be a part of this. And so one of the very, very deep disappointments that I've had artistically is that the carver really is not doing much as far as the arts are concerned. But that's okay because, there are plans in the works to do things for artists and get many of them shown. And we've got so many wonderful artists here. And so Dr. Grigsby also knew my family, which was interesting. And he actually told me a story about, and Mrs. Grigsby, I knew and loved her. But he actually told me a story about when Marshall was a baby and they first came to Arizona. And Mrs. Grigsby and Marshall were renting a room in someone's house, and Doctor was renting a room in someone else's house. And of course, segregation was the way of the world in those days. And my mother's stepfather was one of the first Black City of Phoenix employees. And he was a garbage man. And he would go around and look at properties and help restore it. And he helped Dr. Grigsby find and make some repairs to the house in the Garfield that they wound up moving into and living in until the very end. And so that was a story that, even if he knew it, I heard it before, he was fond of repeating it. So I am very happy that we have that long connection. And if there's anything that you want to ask me or anybody wants to ask, that's fine. I do curate art. Obviously I create art, and I'm working on a documentary right now that will highlight some of the musical artists, longstanding musical artists that are not getting credited and seen locally.
Clottee, let me add that that house that your uncle found that's a true story. We moved into that house, and it had been vacant for 3 years. It had the person who lived there died and willed it to a dog, and we had to get the house out of probate court that was owned by a dog.
Yes, and he helped fix the windows because I guess there weren't windows in there.
Wow, what an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ms. Hammons and Marshall. I didn't know that. And that, again, is part of kind of, the understanding of this man, the family, and just the impact that he had not only within, the circles that he moved, but again, within people that he just connected with and had a very robust and long relationship with. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation because I also want to make sure that we do a shout out to Mr. Leonard Wilson. Mr. Leonard Wilson wasn't able to be with us today, but he is also another artist that is on display at the exhibit that we currently have going on here at Arizona State University. And Ms. Hammons, I don't know if you wanted to say a few words about Mr. Wilson, since you and him are somewhat connected. I didn't know if you wanted to speak a few minutes about Mr. Wilson as well.
Sure, Leonard and I are very connected. He was one of Dr. Grigsby's students at Phoenix Union High School, and he has been painting ever since he was like 10 years old. And Leonard is one of the people whose work that I curate frequently because, as I said previously, he does not get the opportunity that, because we don't have a cultural center, we don't have galleries and so forth. He really does not get a lot of the opportunities to show his phenomenal work. And so I'm very happy that he is included in this exhibition. And I asked Leonard one time, well, who are some of the really good artists that, Doc taught in high school? And Leonard told me they were all great. And so, he also let me know that Doc gave them the freedom to paint whatever it was that they wanted to paint or draw, and he helped them get materials, which is extremely important because that often keeps people from exploring and stretching out to their full potential.
Thank you so much for providing that and for that understanding of Mr. Wilson and his work. And I have to say, his work in that exhibit is phenomenal. And I was able to go to one of the exhibits that Ms. Hammons curated for Mr. Wilson. And I highly encourage anyone who does not know of Mr. Leonard Wilson and the work that he does to please either get in contact with Ms. Hammons or to go out and try and find some of Mr. Wilson's work, because it is amazing and it is truly, truly inspirational. And I hope to one day maybe have a piece of his on my wall, because he does really phenomenal work. So I'm so happy that he agreed and was able to be a part of this exhibit here that we have regarding the legacy of Dr. Grigsby, because it not only, again, extends into the ASU family, it extends into high schools, into these other circles, as Mr. Grigsby and Ms. Hammons were talking about, is that Dr. Grigsby just wasn't an artist, wasn't just a professor here at ASU. He really was a person who was very connected to his community and wanted to make sure that he was giving back to his community as well. So thank you so much, Ms. Hammond, for talking a little bit about Mr. Wilson, even though he wasn't able to be here today. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next person who's going to provide quite a bit of information. So Miss Senina Woods Harris is the daughter of Roosevelt Rip Woods and the sibling of Dee Dee Woods. We were able to have both Rip and Dee Dee's work here available. And Senina, thank you so much for being here. And we'll go ahead and have you speak a little bit about your father, about your sister, and about Dr. Grigsby and his influence on your family. Go ahead, Senina, when you're ready.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. And,
oh, your audio is a little bit.
Special thanks for to.
Senina, your audio is just a tiny bit off. Can I have you go off camera and see if the audio gets a little bit better?
Okay, I'll try it. So go off camera.
So yes, let's see if we can get you off camera so that your audio is just, okay, go ahead and speak now. Let's see if that works. Is that better?
Okay, can you hear me a little better now?
Yes, that's a ton better. So go ahead and be off camera and I'll just have the PowerPoint up. So go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, sounds good. As I was saying, I'm very appreciative to be in this circle of someone who is preserving legacy and preserving legacy of someone as significant as Dr. Grigsby. He was very significant in my life because he was significant in my dad's life from the age of 14 or 13, whenever he entered high school. At Carver High School, he was my dad's art teacher. And I think shop also, they combined that. And I think he met his match very young. My dad would excel and finish projects very quickly, and Dr. Grigsby would have to give him something extra to do and almost had him helping teach to keep him out of trouble, because he was done with one thing and all the other students were still working on it. But the bond started there, and my dad continued to flourish under his wings. They remained close friends and had a significant bond. They went on later to teach at ASU, and they were colleagues. And I always was fascinated by that, because how many people do you get to teach with that was your high school teacher? So they became friends and peers, not just, you know, a student-teacher relationship. And then it went beyond that. It was like family. Dr. Grigsby called my house our house, I should say, my parents' house, several times a week. And it was always to get my dad into something in the community, an art exhibit, a show, to mentor somebody, totally pushing, driving him all the way to the end. That was their relationship. And they fed off of each other. They went on a sabbatical together to Lagos, Festique in Nigeria. And that, I think, changed their avenue of art and made them both blossom together when they came back. My dad's art just improved. And, you know, I got to know his children and his wife. And like I said the other night, there's always a great woman behind a great man. And they would come and visit us, you know, visit old school style, like people don't do much anymore. My mom would whip out some cheese and crackers and soda or something like that and sit and talk and visit for hours. And they talked to me and my sister, Dee Dee Woods, who's also an artist, like we were adults. I mean, they interacted with us and we learned so much from them. And Mrs. Grigsby was a biology teacher, so we were fascinated with her science education and the little things that she had in the jar at her house that she would share with us, little dissected animals and that kind of thing. But our relationship was more than colleagues, peers, teachers, of mentorship, loyalty, and dedication all the way to the end. And he picked that relationship right up with my sister in the area of art. She's a photographer, or she was a photographer, my late sister. And he picked up the same habits as encouraging her to be in shows, to head up community art exhibits, influence young people, and again, met his match because she was a Renaissance woman, just as my dad was a Renaissance man, just as Dr. Grigsby was a Renaissance man, and they were all peas in a pod. And I have to preserve their legacy, and I'm on board with anybody else preserving Dr. Grigsby's legacy. So again, thank you, and I appreciate being here.
Jessica, I've got to underscore what Nina is saying. She's absolutely correct. I mean, the bond between the Woods family and my family goes back to as far as I can remember, and it was always a fun one. There also was a strong bond between another couple I see on this screen, and that's Doyle and Selma Foreman, who were really very much a part of that that whole community. So it was the circumstances created the tightness of the community, and the interest that people had helped that to be possible. And so when I think back over the time of growing up, and you pointed out uh, Mr. Wilson, he and I were in school together. We both went to Booker T. Washington Elementary School and to Phoenix Union High School together. And I watched him as a youngster in the art department at Phoenix Union High School under my father's tutelage. And then he has taken off and done great things on his own. So in many respects, a lot of things happened through the synergy that was created by creative people working with one another. And that community translated and transformed and moved beyond the boundaries of the Valley and Arizona and others. All of the folks who were involved in then, they didn't use the term then, but would be characterized as internationalists. I mean, they realized the culture, the art of creative people around the world and the importance of that. And that influenced their work. And through that, it also influenced their understanding of the world and of looking for ways to help this place be a little bit better as a result of them having been a part of it. And so the more we can learn from what they have done, build on that, take it to the next level, I think the better we all will be.
Thank you so much for that, Marshall. I really appreciate it. And I know this is kind of impromptu, but Mr. Doyle Foreman, I don't know if you wanted to unmute and actually say a few words about Dr. Grigsby and about his influence and just yourself as well. So if you would like to unmute and say a few words, Mr. Doyle Foreman, I would love to hear from you. Oop, you're still muted if you are talking.
Well, we're
There
having
we go.
some problems.
There we go. You got it. Thank you.
You have me on, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I was at the time, he became a teacher at Carver. I was in, I think I was in grade school and I was going to Bethune at the time, it was, or Booker T. Washington. It was Booker T. Washington, I think.
Right.
And so I went by to see him, and he asked me if I, would do babysitting for Marshall and Eugene Jr., Eugene III. And I agreed, and I became their babysitter. So Marshall and Eugene and I would go to the movies and things like that to keep them busy and entertained. And one summer he was working on his doctorates at NYU, and he asked me if I could, look out for him. I was just a kid. I didn't. Oh, sure, And, so we went through the whole summer, going to movies and that, and and I would sit in on some of his students who were taking special courses from special art training, and I would be introduced, and I could sit in on the art sessions, and I I started when I started high school. I went to Phoenix Tech, so I didn't have the opportunity to go to Carver, so I would get in on any kind of session or anything like that would give me more exposure. And the one summer he went to NYU to work on his doctorate, I had my hands full. I was the ones that was giving his mother, the kid's mother, Thomasina. I was giving her a hand to do small items like I was learning to cook and things like that. So she put up with my help during that period. So I spent lots of time with the family, and I was over from my school at Phoenix Tech to Carver just about every week. I could get over there, so I went along with his classes over there, and we became very attached to one another.
Thank you so much for that. I feel like that is such like one of those continuous stories that I hear from so many folks, is just that once you get into kind of his orbit, you stayed there literally forever. Like it was just kind of like he brought you in, or there was a thing that brought you to him, and you just never left. And so I'm super appreciative to hear just from everyone about this amazing person and his continued kind of goodwill and good love that everybody has. Anytime I ever hear any stories about him. Marshall, I saw that you unmuted, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak again if you would like to.
I was simply going to piggyback on what Doyle said. Your babysitting days had an impact, and it made a difference. But Doyle is also a fantastic sculptor. He's had exhibits all over the place, and he's just his creative eye, hand, mind is fantastic, and I just he doesn't get anywhere near the recognition that he should because of the work that he has done. But he also has been a teacher for many years, and so he's has made a big impact on an awful lot of people's lives in his own right. So, Doyle, thank you for all of what you've done.
Yes, I'm glad to be part of this interview.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Truly, greatly appreciate you all. So this is a part of the programming where I would like to invite anyone who has had any kind of good memories or anything along those lines that they would like to share about Dr. Grigsby. Obviously, we heard from Mr. Doyle Foreman, but if there is anyone else on this call who has had an interaction or had an interaction with the Grigsby family and would like to share that, I would love to hear from you if you would like to unmute and give us a story about the Grigsby family, or you as a Black artist, if you are an artist here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. I would love to hear from you.
Greetings.
Hi, good evening.
Hello. I'm Dr. Camilla Westingberg, and I am not an artist, but I did have the opportunity to meet Dr. Grigsby. I taught at Phoenix College, and he would often say that we should work on a project together. But I had students who interfaced with him. I was aware of COBA. And I remember one year I had one of my students and my daughter actually to write in the writing competition when Maya Angelou was in town, because COBA would go into various areas of the arts. And they both won first place. Both of those young people are attorneys now. And I just want to say that I also knew Rip Woods, and I knew Dee Dee Woods as well. Rip Woods actually designed our tree at Phoenix College, where we have the names of African-American alumni who were graduates of Phoenix College. And we have featured Dee Dee on our campus, and she has done a presentation for a group of little kids at the Academy of Excellence. And so, although I am not an artist, I must say that his reach, and I do have a piece of his artwork in my home, by the way, Dr. Grigsby. And so the reach is vast and varied in this community. And I just have very wonderful thoughts about Dr. Eugene Grigsby and those people who were around him. And I will have to check out for another meeting, but I did want to come in today to hear this.
Thank you so much for being here. We truly appreciate it. And thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your history with the Grigsby family. And in general, another piece of information I did not know about Mr. Rip Woods and what he has around the Phoenix metropolitan area. I really have to get out there more and see more of just the things that him and Dr. Grigsby and Ms. Hammons and Mr. Wilson are doing when it comes to supporting Black and African-American artists here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. So thank you so much for letting us know that that was a design that Mr. Rip Woods did. And I hope that we can see it if it is on display at the college.
It is in Fannin Library, and actually Rip Woods, I don't want to go off, had Waddell to cast it for us, who did the sculpture of the 4 little girls, of which one set is at Carver Museum. And so, yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Hammons, I see you're unmuted. I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yes, I would like to add that as a teacher, Dr. Grigsby taught African art at ASU when all of the art history and the art focus was Eurocentric. And it was a time where it was a time where it was really needed and really appreciated. And you could see the influence in the art that you were, when you would travel to other cities, when you could leave Arizona and travel to other cities, you could comprehend more clearly what that influence was, that influence of African art. And so that was one thing I was truly grateful to him for. And in his class, there were no wrong answers. It was all interpretation. And so we had some very in-depth discussions that I never had in any of my other classes.
Thank you, Ms. Hammons. I really appreciate that. And I feel like, that is something, especially during the time that Dr. Grigsby was here at ASU, that was, I'm sure, very much needed and very much appropriate for, a Black teacher to provide that perspective and provide that understanding, especially to his Black and African American students, which, I'm sure at that time probably weren't very many, to have a space that was available to them in order to talk about the real world realities of being a Black and African American person in this country, and specifically being at a institution like ASU, because it is a predominantly white institution, but at the same time, there really was those cultivated spaces that it seems like Dr. Grigsby and other Black and African American faculty at that time cultivated in order to make sure that their students felt like they belonged and felt like they had a space in order to talk about the real world things that were going on during that time. So I wanted to ask anybody else if they were interested in unmuting themselves to talk about a memory of Dr. Grigsby that hasn't already been shared, if you would like.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi,
Oh.
I'm sorry. This is Michael Dean. I'm wow, been in the community for a long time. Worked with Dr. Grigsby, with COBA and with the Artists of the Black Community. Went down to Phoenix OIC, and we set up the art show for the young people. He was just an awesome individual. We worked together on a number of projects. I have some of his artwork here in the house, and the influence that he had in so many wonderful ways throughout the community. I mean, when he called, I came running, and he he did that all the time because there was always something to do. We wanted to set up art display at the state capitol, and we were there to help him. Larry Wilson, myself, and some others. With so many young artists around the valley. I'm not a well. I write for the Arizona Informant. I've been with the Informant for a long time, and I spent years with my camera chasing young people in football and basketball and all kinds of community events, all the Martin Luther King marches and all of those things. And I was out front making photography, making photographs and documenting those events for the newspaper. And I must say that my wife, Stephanie, and I both loved Dr. Grigsby and Sister Tommy, and he's certainly missed, but he left a great impression on this community. And I thank you for the opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you so much for unmuting. We really appreciate you. And As I said, it just is so wonderful to get to meet so many folks who were a part of his circle and a part of the understanding of who he was as a artist, as a person, just as an individual, because I've heard that from so many people. It sounds like he made a phone call and everybody was just like, yes, how can I help? Please get me involved. I want to be involved in whatever you're involved with. So it's such an honor to be able to get to talk to everyone who has been a part of that circle and a part of the Grigsby family and the Grigsby understanding of this giant personality and man who really had an impact on so many folks. Marshall Grigsby, I saw that you unmuted. Please go ahead.
I did. Thank you, Jessica. I wanted to pick up on something that Clottee Hammons had just mentioned, and that is about introducing African art into the class discussion and the like. And that really goes back to what I was saying earlier about his truly being an internationalist. I mean, he knew African art as well as anything else. But he also had a great understanding and appreciation of Native American art and of art from a variety of different cultures, and understood not only the importance of the creative process, but understood the importance of using that as a vehicle to get people to better understand each other. And so there was always a message behind it. It wasn't simply an academic exercise, but it was a way of saying that this world is so much bigger than what most people really realize. And most people operate in kind of a narrow environment, but that there's so much more outside of us. And the more we can get to understand that, then we can understand ourselves a little bit better and appreciate the work that we create a little bit better. And so he used art as a way to get a greater depth of understanding and of cultures and of people. And that carried over in everything that he did and whatever organization he was involved in, and there were many. He was involved probably in just about every art education association throughout Arizona, the Midwest, and the nation, and served as an officer in most of those organizations, including the National Art Education Association, which ultimately named their community outreach a national award for him because of his being recognized as being of that being a championed area for him. So it was a way of life, and it was also a way of showing how we all need to look at the world through different lenses than our own.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marshall. I really appreciate that. Any last minute people who would like to unmute to possibly talk about Dr. Grigsby or share a story that you have?
I would.
Oh, excellent. Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we absolutely can. Thank you, Pat.
I'm Pat Bates. I'm Eugene's niece. My mother was his sister, and he was just a fun uncle. He was, when he came we grew up in New Haven, when he would come on his way to New York, he'd always take us to the bookstore, buy us books. He bought me my first Langston Hughes books. When I was in the 8th grade, I was going to write a paper on Langston Hughes, and my mother said, call your uncle, because he's friends with him. And he wrote me a 5-page letter full of typos about what I should listen for and look for in his writings. But we became great friends, especially when we both I lived on the West Coast in LA, and when he was in Phoenix. But the story one of the stories I love about him is he graduated from Morehouse College when he was 15 years old, which wasn't all that unusual in that day and time. He got accepted after studying with Hale Woodruff he got accepted to art school in New York, but he didn't have enough money to get there. So he incorporated himself and sold shares in his future artwork, which he didn't have. You had to have a lot of faith in him to do that, to get the small amount of money that he needed to get to New York. So he gets there, and on his first day, it's kind of dusk, late in the afternoon, and he couldn't afford the regular Y. So he had to stay at the Annex on 135th Street. And when he checked in, he told the desk clerk, "My name is Eugene Grigsby, and this is my first day in New York City, and I'm going to be an artist." And he was all pumped up, and she said, okay. If you're going to be an artist, you might want to go to that exhibit across the street before it closes. So he goes across the street, and there's only one person left in the exhibit, and they cross paths several times. And finally, Eugene stopped, and he gave this guy the same spiel that he had given, the same country spiel that he had given the desk clerk about, this is my first day in New York City, and I'm going to be an artist. And my name is Eugene Grigsby. So the guy stuck out his hand and introduced himself. He said, Jake Lawrence. And so it was Jacob Lawrence. And they became the best of friends. And he said, well, if you're from North Carolina, you probably ought to come with me and meet another couple of fellows from North Carolina who turned out to be Charles Alston and Romery Bearden. And, those stories stick with me. And they all remained friends for many years. And he was particularly close to Jacob Lawrence.
Pat, thank you so very much for that. I really, really appreciate that story. Wow, that's, as you said, it's amazing to know right away, like, this is my name, and you're gonna know my name, as time goes on. So that is such a great story. Thank you so much. Mr. Foreman, I saw that you unmuted, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to say something if you wanted to. Oh, you are muted now, so if you would like to unmute again.
Okay.
Oh, you just muted yourself one more time. You were unmuted and you just muted yourself. Oh, there we go. Yep, you're unmuted now.
I wanted to say something about Eugene. I think that he was very instrumental in Doyle's being able to pursue art as a career by starting so young. And, eventually he became a professor at the University of California. And I think it was Eugene's had a big influence on his career choice. I just wanted to commend him for that. And I also wanted to mention that for years, he sent us handmade Christmas cards every year. I have a file full of Eugene's Christmas cards, which were always amazing, and we always looked forward to receiving his Christmas cards.
Yeah.
Is Senina still there?
She is still on the call, yes.
Yeah.
What, Senina, wasn't Rip Wood's Christmas card that he did, that Eugene taught him how to do, and wasn't his card like the first Black artist to have the cover of the Neiman Marcus Christmas catalog?
Oh,
Am I making that up?
I don't think so. I don't remember that.
Yeah, no, Pat, you're right that he did. He got Rip to do the Christmas cards, but Rip designed a gift that was a part of the Neiman Marcus catalog. It was kind of a snowflake thing that was done for Neiman Marcus that was based on one of his Christmas cards. But Selma, you're right. Those Christmas cards were an annual event, and I'll tell you a little flip side of that. They were great and they were wonderful to receive. we hated it when Christmas came around because we had to hand screen all of those cards. So our Christmas break was spent in his classroom at Phoenix Union High School, hand screening them. And when there were multiple colors, you had to screen it by hand. You had to wait for it to dry. Then you put the next color on, and then they went out. And so everybody got them and loved them. And we, the family, said, "Whew, we're glad that Christmas is over with."
But we didn't get them at Christmas.
Well, it's good backstory.
But there was also I don't know if you remember, or you maybe remember, but the Eye of Shamba, his art. He did a show, 65-year retrospective exhibition, and he dedicated it to Miss Thomasina.
Yep.
It was beautiful, and we had a book that was. I have a copy of that here at the house, and it's just fascinating with all of that, all of the work that he did over the years.
Yep. You're absolutely right, and that was a tremendous exhibit at the Phoenix Art Museum where that was held.
Exactly.
Senina, I saw that you are unmuted, so I don't know if you wanted to say a few words. You might have to go off camera though if you're choppy.
Yeah,
again.
Okay, let me try it. Okay, so when I heard the Neiman Marcus catalog, I kind of perked up a little bit, but just to clarify, and also Marshall, I spent many Christmas breaks with my dad, helping him with his silk screens for Christmas cards over the years. And I didn't know we had that in common. It wasn't that fun, but looking back on it, how lucky were we? And those cards are still kept by so
You're right.
many people and preserved. And
yeah, I've got his cards hanging on my wall right now.
And I've got your dad's cards. But as far as the Neiman Marcus catalog, I just wanted to clarify, it was the 1990 catalog cover, and they went on to make Christmas.
Can you say that again?
Cards, canisters with pretzels and goodies in them. Are you able to hear me?
You cut.
Just saying that the catalog. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on, but I think Marshall covered it. The catalog came back out in '92 because it was the most popular cover ever. And so they resurfaced it and repeated the same thing, made globes and canisters and cards and everything. And of course, Dr. Grigsby was always encouraging him, as usual.
How cool is that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all so much. This has been so fun to get to kind of hear from everyone who has a story and has so many excellent memories of Christmases. I can imagine being a kid, you're just like, I just want to be on break, I just want to do kind of hang out with my friends, and just like, no, we have cards to do, we have business to do. So that's really amazing to get to hear that not just Marshall, but Senina also has similar experiences around Christmas time of putting together very elaborate, interesting Christmas cards. I'm sad that I missed that that mail distribution of those cards, because those sound really amazing and really, really awesome. So thank you all. Thank you so much for this. This was kind of an impromptu little section of this, so I'm happy that we were able to have all of these memories and all of these stories shared, not just from the people who are on exhibit at the exhibit at Hayden Library, but also some of the family and friends who were surrounded by the Grigsby family and got to really be a part of this amazing, amazing story. So I'm going to go back to the presentation here very quickly, just to show a couple of slides of the exhibit in case you are unable to come to Hayden Library on Tempe campus here in Phoenix, Arizona, to see the exhibit. It will be up until the end of June. So if you are interested or able to come to Hayden Library Tempe campus, we would love to have you and love to see you at the exhibit. So these are just a couple of the pictures that were taken of the exhibit by my team here at Hayden Library. This is the front of the exhibit and the nook, we call it the nook, that displays a lot of the text and a lot of the art that is on display here. And then this second slide here is of when you round the corner from that initial view, there are some things on the side, and this is where we get to talk about some of the collectives that Dr. Grigsby was a part of. So the Artist of Black Community of Arizona, so ABCAZ, COBA, which has been mentioned a couple of times. And then one of the programs here at Arizona State University Dr. Grigsby was involved with was the Give a Damn Art Teachers Alliance. And so that has been really fun to get to dig into the archive and get to see some of the photos from each of these particular organizations that Dr. Grigsby was involved with, and then also to get to see some of the photos of not just Rip Woods, but of Dr. Bernard Young also is a part of some of the archival photos as well, and he was gracious enough to be a part of the exhibit, or a part of some of the talking points that we have where this exhibit is concerned. And then just in general, just highlight a couple of the amazing pieces that Miss Clottee Hammons put on display here at Hayden Library. And then also one of the very interesting photos that we found within the archival collection that we labeled as the best wishes to the best art teacher in the world. And so that was one of the photos that we had within the collection that Dr. Grigsby, that we have available here at Hayden Library. If you or anyone you know is interested in viewing Dr. Grigsby's collection at Hayden Library, it is available on our Arizona Archives Online, which is where you would find the finding aid in order to go ahead and look at all of the materials that we have available in the Grigsby collection, all 35mm slides. Thank you, Nancy. Greatly appreciate you putting that link up. This is to Black collections here at ASU, and so that also links off to Dr. Grigsby's archival material. So if you are interested in learning more about Black collections or learning about Dr. Grigsby's collection, please go ahead and visit that website, and you would be able to find some more information on not just this exhibit, but how you can support Black collections and just in general what Black collections is all about. So we're coming to the end, and so I wanted to give the opportunity if anybody had any questions for the artist or for the Grigsby family. We have a few moments in order to take a couple of questions. So if anyone would like to unmute or put your question in the chat, we would be more than happy to answer those. So thank you.
Anything you want to ask?
No,
No?
Jessica, I've got a question, and that is, how can people outside of ASU be supportive of the work that you are doing and helping to highlight and spotlight the work of Black artists and others in and outside of ASU?
Thank you, Marshall, for that question. I really appreciate you. So as I said, in general, the website that Nancy did put up on in the chat is to Black collections. It literally just went up last week. So this is a brand new website to the ASU umbrella in order to talk about the work that I am doing and that Black Collections is doing, and how you can support if you are inclined to provide financial support to Black Collections. We very much are looking for supporters and donors in order to assist us in the work that we're doing. Because as I said, this is a brand new collection, a brand new position to ASU Library. And so for me, it is very important to make sure that I am uplifting and highlighting the Black and African American experience and work that we as Black and African American people who have come through ASU highlighted. Most people don't know that one of our very first graduates, Black graduates, graduated in 1924. His name is Bennett James. And so we have a long, long legacy here at ASU when it comes to the Black and African American experience. And so Black Collections is very focused on making sure that we, and I put this in quotes, uncover that history for folks inside and outside of ASU in order to understand that we've been here, we've always been here, and we will continue to be here when it comes to Black and African American people and our experience. And Ms. Hammons, I don't know if you wanted to unmute and talk about your work that you're doing to uplift and highlight Black and African American artists in the Phoenix metropolitan area with your Emancipation Arts Collective.
Sure. Emancipation Arts, I'm a small business, and our mission is to raise the profile of Black artists in Arizona. And so I have a number of, I curate, I have music events, and I'm also a historian. And so I have a number of ongoing projects. We just finished The Soul of the Great Migration that emphasizes or highlights Black musicians and music of the African diaspora. And it is unfortunately here, if you want to see live musicians, Black musicians, almost the only two ways you can do it is to go to the church house or go to the bar, which is not always the way that a family can enjoy things. And so this past Friday, we had a full day, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., with families coming and going, small children dancing and Yoruba drumming and blues and just jazz. Wonderful day. And so that's one of the things that I do. And the Great Migration Indiscernibles in Arizona, we've released a blues CD, an anthology. We have a traveling exhibition, and I'm always collecting stories and having events around that project. I also work with youth. We do a workshop with them where we teach them to interview senior citizens about how they came to Arizona. And so that's ongoing. You'll hear and see more of that. And I work with poets and writers and there's a lot that needs to be done.
Thank you, Ms. Hammons. And in general, Senina, I don't know if you wanted to also talk about the website and what you're doing to support your father and your sister's legacy as well.
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say there's a show at Scottsdale Civic Center and Public Library on Drink Water, and it's been up for a few months. And I think Saturday or Friday, the 31st, Saturday is the last day. So if you can get out there, it's my dad's work and several of his students' work also included, and my sister. It's titled Creating Magic, and it was curated by Wendy Rossman, who heads up the Scottsdale Public Arts, and it's just a great show. So I'm hoping that you can catch it. Also, you can see some of his works and what's coming up at ripwoodstudioproject.com. And there's some things featured about my sister on there also. Thank you.
Jessica, I'm going to make one other suggestion. She's going to hate me for saying this, but my youngest daughter, who is on this call, is a graduate of Arizona State University, has not been involved, and I'm going to make sure she gets involved.
She is going to hate you.
Well, thank you, Marshall. And yes, I would love to hear more from your daughter. And if she would like to get involved and have, please have her reach out to me. I would love to talk to her about how we can work together. That would be very, very amazing. So thank you. Any,
Absolutely. I look forward to connecting.
yay, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Do we have any other questions for either the artist or anyone else who's on the call? I do have a question if nobody else has a question. So I guess for me, I am interested in hearing from either Marshall or Miss Hammons or Senina or Mr. Doyle Foreman as well as about from your perspective, what is the greatest lesson that you learned from Dr. Grigsby?
Well, Nina or Clottee, because I've got a gazillion of them that I can share. But I think probably the biggest lesson that I remember and will always cherish is both his love of people and his constantly imagining new things, that his mind never slept. It was always thinking of new ways to do things. And so that inspiration uh, helped to make me who I am. And of course, my mother played a significant role in that. And her, it was mentioned earlier, I think Nina mentioned about her being a biology teacher. Her scientific training helped to create a perfect storm for my brother and me, having both the yin and yang in that whole dynamic. You have the scientist and the artist, and trying to negotiate that was a wonderful childhood. But the imagination and always thinking is probably what I would put at the top of the list.
Miss Hammons, do you have something?
Yes, and I have to tell Marshall, I do include your mother in my interactive workshops because I want people to realize how important she was, not just as a teacher, but as an activist. That woman was my shero. And so as far as your question about what, Dr. Grigsby imparted so many wise things to me because we had a great opportunity to just sit and talk together when I worked for him, when I came back to Arizona from the Bay Area and worked for him. And of course, Kobo was doing different things. He had a dinner planned with a very famous filmmaker that backed out at the last minute. And he didn't get upset. He didn't get excited. He said, something's going to turn up. Sure enough, Danny Glover stepped in and it was a great evening. But one of the things that he really did pass along to me is in stressful situations and at ASU in the fine arts department, I didn't have really any company. He passed along to me when things get stressful, when you feel diminished, go back to your sketch pad because that's really what people don't see. They don't understand where you're going and just don't internalize what they're trying to do to discourage you because these people are going to be in your rear view one day. So go back to your sketchbook.
Thank you, Ms. Hammons. Mr. Doyle Foreman, did you have something that you would like to share?
You.
No, not in particular.
No?
Oh.
That is absolutely fine. Senina, did you have anything that you would like to add?
Yes, and I think I said this once before, but just to kind of add to it, just the example of loyalty and follow throughness. I don't know if that's really a word, follow throughness, but whatever he was committed to, he saw it to the end. I never saw him just phasing out on a project with my dad or in the community. Follow through, commitment, loyalty, and just making bridges and connections with people and the power of that, and not the power because they were in elite positions or they were full-fledged adults. He was committed to youth, young people, underprivileged people. He was open to that. And I think that that was a great example.
Thank you so very
Thank
much.
you.
Do we have any other questions for the participants from the audience?
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Hi, doing very good. Thank you so much. I'll just start my video. I'm a first generation Tucsonan. My name's Leilani, and I just feel so privileged to be in this space. Everybody, you know, we know our Arizona community. Sometimes there's the 2 hours makes a big distance away from folks. So it is very just insightful and beautiful. And my heart feels very full just to hear all these wonderful stories. My background is that my father actually first came into Arizona during the early 60s from Verde Valley High School. And he's been in Arizona since. So I'm a product of that, of just that one of those many migration stories that come. My mother's Native American, so we're from up North Arizona area. But this is, I'm very privileged and very grateful to be in this space and hear just like the legacy of just like Black excellence and artistry and innovation and just so much collaboration. And of course, the heart of community is always just shown through the arts. So it's really wonderful. I'm really happy too that I'll be joining y'all later in April. I'm really excited to be there for the Black History Symposium that y'all are having. So I'm going to be doing the storytelling workshop. So I really hope that some of the attendants tonight, that y'all come in and just grace that area, bless that space with all the beautiful stories and just the continuation of just having these legacies, these memories live on through our spoken word and just all of the stories that we have to contribute. So I thank you all very much and looking forward to see you all in April.
Thank you so much, Leilani. And this gives us a great segue into, we have about 5 minutes left, so I want to go ahead and just close out the program by saying, first of all, thank you all so much for being a part of this. This has been really fun and really exciting. And I've learned some more stories about Dr. Grigsby and everybody who was surrounded around him. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time, just to go ahead and do some announcements. And so, as Leilani said, we have a symposium going on next month that I would love to have. If you are available to be a part of it in person, that would be great. But if you can only attend via Zoom, that is fine. We do have a Zoom option. So next month, we are putting on a 2-day symposium. It's called the Black Memory and Storytelling Symposium. Day one, we'll be here at Hayden Library, Tempe campus on April 20th, 2023. We have an all-day panel from, I believe it's 8 a.m. until about 4 p.m. That we will be having speakers, panelists, and we have a really exciting keynote speaker. Carla Lindell Bishop is going to be our keynote speaker, and she's a professor with the School of Film here at ASU, the Sidney Poitier School of Film here. And then Leilani, as she said, is going to be a presenter on our day 2, which is April 22nd at Burton Bar Central Library, which is in downtown Phoenix. We will be doing 2 workshops. One, I will be leading in the morning, the archives preservation workshop in the morning. And then Leilani has graciously agreed to do the second half, which is her particular workshop is titled Our Journeys Have a Name, Storytelling as Art, Healing, and Justice Workshop. And so that will be from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at Burton Bar Public Library in downtown Phoenix. And so please check our social media and others. If you're interested in learning more, you can email me and I can provide a lot of information available to everyone who would like to. And then here is my contact information in case anybody doesn't have it, and then also our website and our social media handles. And so if you would like to learn more or continue to follow what we are doing as community-driven archives, which is the umbrella that Black Collections is under, please follow us on social media. We will be promoting this and all of the work that we are doing here at Arizona State University through our social media, through our websites, and through individual sessions or talks that are available to folks, just please reach out to us. We would love to work with you if you are interested in trying to figure out how you can preserve your family or community memory through community-driven archives. That is pretty much the end. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing screen. As I said, thank you all so very much for being a part of this. This space has been so inspirational and so comforting to get to know more about Dr. Grigsby and to get to hear from everyone who had such an impact from, like I said, a titan of a man that I unfortunately was never able to meet in person, but I feel very connected to through events, through conversations that I've had, not only with Dr. Marshall Grigsby, but with Miss Senina Woods-Harris and Miss Clottee Hammons and everyone else who had that particular relationship with Dr. Grigsby. And as I said, if you would like to support Black Collections, we do have a page on the ASU website. And then also, if you're interested in donating to Black Collections, I would love to have a conversation with you because we do need more representation within the archival record when it comes to Black and African American experiences in the Southwest. So if you are interested in learning how you can possibly become a part of the archival record here in Arizona, please reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you. And thank you all again for your time and for your patience with some of the audio and technical difficulties we've had tonight. But this is the end. And so thank you all so much for being here and have a good rest of your evening. We appreciate you. Thank you.